So, all right, let's get it. So, private prisons. You may have heard the term a couple of times in passing, but you may not know exactly what they are. In simple terms, private prisons are detention centers that are privately owned by somebody who has the money, for whatever reason, to build a prison of their own, and then they do this as as a business, as a way to earn profit. It's a business venture. So, just a simple example: somebody that made a whole bunch of money in real estate, they decide to go. They a little bit bored with just buying real estate and property, decide, okay, you know what, I'm actually going to build myself a prison. I'm going to build a prison. I'm going to go to my hometown of Indianapolis, and I'm going to buy 50 acres, 60 acres, and I'm going to put a prison on there, and I'm going to, hire guards, and I'm going to seek to get contracts from the local township, the local county, to be able to house prisoners for them. And that's basically what they do. And then they make money off it. They find a way to profit off of it. They pay the guards, they pay, I guess whatever property tax or mortgage, whatever it is, they'll pay for the expenses related to the prisoners, and then they should still be able to turn a profit. They should still be able to turn a profit, you know what I mean, after that. So, like most businesses, you need to have customers. You got to have a steady supply of customers to remain in business and to grow. If you're just a regular store and you sell, let's say, hair products, you sell makeup, it's pretty easy. You just take out a little ad on Facebook, take out a little ad on Instagram, put an ad on the radio, or you just simply host a sale and say, hey, everything is 20% off, 30% off. And you can, kind of consistently bring in customers, doing it that way by word of mouth, and then by advertising, and then by running sales, right? It's pretty simple. But if you are in the business of prisons and your prospective customers are criminals, then people are doing everything in their power to stay out of your business, to stay out of your jail. And therefore, if your customers are running away from you actively, it's not very good for business. But again, these people who are owning these private prisons, they're either entities or they're individuals. They're billionaires, you know what I mean? They're billion-dollar corporations, and they are people who, individually on their own have billions of dollars collectively from whatever they've done, tech or real estate or investing, whatever it is how they make their money. Maybe it's been passed down. They're billionaires, and so they know a thing or two about, business, and they're not going to jump into a business that they wouldn't be able to sustain with customers and different things like that. Now, as you can imagine, anybody who is literally seeking to profit off of putting people into 5x5 concrete sales for years and years at a time, their moral compass is just a little bit off. So just how off, we're going to go ahead and illustrate it. So the first story we're going to go ahead and break into is a story called Kids for Cash. All right. This whole story was actually made into a full life documentary. Let me switch. So when I think of Pennsylvania, I think of two things. Number one, I think of Hershey, Pennsylvania. You guys know Hershey, like the chocolate bars. They were supposedly invented, I guess, in this town called Hershey, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if the town was named Hershey in the beginning, and then they named the Hershey bar after that, or the town was named whatever, and the Hershey bar became so popular that they named the town after the bar. But I don't know. But over in Hershey, Pennsylvania, they have like the amusement park. For Hershey, you have like a little roller coasters and rides and everything like that. They got the factory, got a museum where people can do tours and everything like that in there. So when I think of Pennsylvania, that's the first thing I think of. And then there was when I think of a Hershey bar though, there was a time where on Facebook it was like this viral video of somebody like in Mexico cutting open a Hershey bar, and there was like maggots coming out. And so that kind of makes a good transition into the second thing that I think about when I think of Pennsylvania, and that is the whole Kids for Cash scandal that occurred in Pennsylvania as well. The result of this Kids for Cash scandal ended up being that 3,000 kids, well, the number kind of varies depending on what source you look at. Some as low as around 2,500 and some as high as around 6,000. But for sure, there's a result in like 3,000 kids basically being illegally and wrongfully jailed, and had 2 former judges arrested and turned into felons. So that's the story that we're going to go ahead and jump into and talk about. It's called the Kids for Cash scandal. So 2003, Bush is in office. The U.S. is fighting a war for some oil in the Middle East, and nobody's paying too much attention to the happenings over in the small town of Luzerne At least this is what Michael Conahan and Robert Ciavarella were thinking about. There was two youth prison centers that were opened up, and they were called PA Child Care and Western PA Child Care, and they were owned and operated by somebody named Robert Powell and Gregory Zappala. Now, Robert Powell was actually an attorney for the state of Pennsylvania, and then Gregory Zappala, his brother, is actually the district attorney for the state of Pennsylvania. So I'm pretty sure they all knew each other and all kind of planned this out, together about what they wanted to go ahead and do. But anyway, so two new youth prisons will go ahead and open up. Sometimes a youth prison is whitewashed under the terminology a youth detention center. And then they open them up in names that sound innocent, PA Child Care and Western PA Child Care. But these were two organizations that, were very cruel and very vicious in what they were doing in their business practices. But they call them, whitewash them by calling them a child care center. Well, no, it's actually a youth detention center, or, in better words, a prison. All right. So let's go give you some extracurricular details about the situation. Michael Conahan was actually the president judge of his county, meaning that he was the highest ranking judge, in that county at that time. And he was involved in the scandal. Gregory Zappala was a co-owner and the only one not to be arrested in this entire scandal. And his brother was at the time the Democratic district attorney, meaning that as a district attorney, you choose if criminal charges are brought up against a person or not, case by case. And so, like I said, Gregory was one of the only people who were involved in this scam, actively involved in the scam, but was not indicted or faced any criminal charges in the state of Pennsylvania or even federally. And then his brother is a district attorney, and he determines if criminal charges are brought or not brought. So that's kind of the sketchy thing about it. And his brother has been a district attorney since 1998, so he's been holding on to that power for a cold minute. And then Robert Powell is another co-owner in this for-profit prison, and he was state attorney. And then Gregory Zappala actually bought out all of Robert Powell's shares before Robert began his 18-month sentence. These are just some extracurricular details I'm throwing in that we're going to kind of break them down throughout the rest of things that we're going to talk about, and then probably a little bit more at the end of the stream. Where was we? So yeah, 2003, Robert and Greg this facility is about to open, but there's only one problem, and that is as a state-run facility, it's too much competition, right? Why would they send them from a state-run to a privately owned for no reason? So what they go ahead and do is they want to build a monopoly on the industry. So they want that publicly operated, detention center to be closed down, right? So they go to Mike. At this point, Mike is the head judge, like I said, the president judge, meaning that he outranks all the other judges in his county. And he's a part of the Democratic Party. And one of his powers, he has budgetary discretion. So he determines what the county spends this funds on, basically. So, okay, we're going to allocate this amount of funds to this, allocate this amount of funds to that. So they go to Mike and basically cause him to stop funding the public youth detention center and instead give the contract to his buddies, which are going to be Robert and Greg, his fellow co-conspirators. And then after that, pretty much the fix was in. So they shut down the local county youth detention centers, and they go ahead and exclusively work with the PA Child Care, and then they exclusively work with Western PA Child Care. And once they were going to the courtroom, there was no attempt to prove if they were innocent or guilty. Basically what happened was they would just yell at them, boom, 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 boom. And then after that, they would quickly give them the punishment. And of course, the punishment was to send them off to PA Child Care, and would do that with extreme swiftness. And they extended their stays as well. So there are stories about somebody who made a Facebook page, trolling their president, trolling their principal, trolling their school principal, and they were sent off to PA Child Care, taken out of the custody of their parents, different things like that. Another person, his parents had bought him a scooter. He took the scooter to school. He got detention for it. Apparently, they said that scooter had been stolen from somebody else. And then again, he was sent to basically a jail for it as well. So there was this variety of cases, just random little small things that they were just like sending them to jail for. and it really didn't make any sense. But again, they were being paid to provide prisoners to PHL care and Western PHL care. So, the corruption was very intense for them to have shut down the publicly held the youth detention center, and then force it basically a monopoly to Western PA and PHL care. So over the years, there were actually multiple complaints filed about the character and the behavior of these two judges, but the complaints, against the judges were kind of just like hushed away. But you have to think about who all is involved with this. You have the head judge, who's also very influential in the Democratic Party, that you're going to be making a complaint against, and then you have the DA, who is the one who controls the criminal charges are brought against the person who's in on it as well, because his brother is involved with the case. So of course they're not going to be able to bring criminal charges against any of these two people. Basically, people try to do the legal route, but the legal route wasn't going to produce any solutions because the corruption was very intense. Now, due to these complaints being waived off, I guess people kind of got this little bit disheartened about ever being able to make change. But that wasn't until the federal government actually stepped in on behalf of the IRS. There was large amounts of cash that Roberts and Michael ended up basically getting into possession of, and that kind of raised some eyebrows of the federal government, especially in the IRS, like tax fraud and different things like that. And so once the federal government got involved, when those complaints were made, they started to look more into them, and then they started to basically investigate the judges and different things like that. And that basically, the IRS basically ended up being the ones to put the nail in the coffin. So both judges are right now serving double-digit sentences. Michael is serving a 17.5-year sentence, and then Robert is serving a 28-year sentence. Now, both of them right now, from my understanding, because of C-19, are actually no longer in jail, like the federal prisons. They're in like house arrest. They're confined to house arrest for now. And so the number of victims, like I said, it may go from as low as 2,400, but as high as 6,000. To me, the victims are anybody who was sentenced, any juvenile that was sentenced from 2003 all the way to 2009, when these people were got off the stand and were arrested and things like that. Because again, they forced a monopoly on the private prisons that was there. And so I think that the two people got caught, two judges got caught, but it doesn't mean that this same company wasn't bribing other judges to do similar things. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean that the other judges were not involved in this as well. So I think anybody who went to jail during that time, it could be seen as a little bit suspect, especially within that county. It's a little bit suspect because we know that corruption was involved. So we don't know if the other people were getting paid off and they didn't get caught. Because again, you had a DA in your back pocket. You don't know really what the case could be. And I don't think they're just going to learn a lesson and stop doing this. They knew this was wrong from the very beginning. So I'm pretty sure they just move a little bit more smart, a little bit smarter now with the people they pay off and how they pay them off and different things like that. But yeah, the kids' lives are ruined, as a result of these judges just wanting to, get a little bit of money and things like that. And so like I said, the two judges are both in jail right now, double-digit sentences, but they are on house arrest. And then Robert Powell, who was a co-owner of the prison and was the one who was paying people the money, allegedly, I guess, was the one who was paying people the money to, send kids to this youth detention center and to send them there for as long as they possibly could. He received 18 months in jail. And then once he got out, he was prompted to pay a $4.75 million settlement to some of the kids that were involved. Now, as far as the resolution to this, 2,400 of the kids were able to get their records expunged of the crimes. But again, the effects of going to jail still will carry out in your life, as far as even just psychologically. And, they took kids out of the custody of their parents. So in some cases now, there were, you had to go through child protective services and be able to remove them and different things like that. So these prison sentences for these youth had long-lasting effects, on the whole community as a whole. So now let me go ahead and break it down, man. For me, the main conspirators were the Zappala brothers, right? The co-owner. Now again, once this dude Robert ended up going to jail, his co-owner in the business, he bought out his shares. So he bought out Robert's shares and became the full sole proprietor of the business. So Robert was really just brought on to be the fall guy. Robert was really just brought on to be the fall guy this entire time. Then you got the two judges. The judges, in particular, the head judge, the presidential judge, who was able to stop the budget for the public prison and to allocate it to the private prison. He was brought on just to be able to make that move. He's the one who had the power to be able to make that play. And once they had an opportunity to get rid of him, of course they were able to do that because, again, his brother is a DA, district attorney, so he can do that to him. And then as far as the other judge, I don't know. I think, they probably just brought him on just to bring him on. You know what I mean? It wouldn't just be one judge. Maybe he caught on. Maybe he just caught on to the scam and was about to expose it, or who knows. But they brought the other dude on. But when you look at the Zappala brothers, man, I think it's weird that nobody from that family is in jail. It's weird nobody from that family was investigated. You know what I mean? I think they're playing with some pretty deep pockets. That's the first thing. And I think that's what allowed them to kind of move and maneuver. But they set everybody up, and they were able to reap all the benefits of this private prison, but not face none of the consequences. And we look at his brother. His brother recently, 2021, actually was accused of being a racist by another black lawyer. And his response, Stefan's response was to actually tell everybody not to accept plea deals from this black lawyer's office. And so the intent was to make it to where clients wouldn't want to work with this black lawyer because they knew that basically there was a fix against him, that people were going to treat him unfairly just because he spoke out against the racist, what he believed was systematic racism that Stefan and his office, perpetrated. And, since then he came out like, oh, well, I'm sorry about this, I'm going to rescind it and all kind of stuff. But again, he basically tried to ruin this man's life. And so to me, he and his brother were the real conspirators in this whole, case scenario. And I believe that they should be facing criminal charges as well. So when we go ahead and do that, man, that's basically the Kids for Cash scandal. Again, they got a documentary on it. But people may look at things on a political spectrum, but there's also more so a spiritual, spectrum to this as well. And you got to think about what type of spirit will be in somebody to easily and without remorse ruin the lives of children, and then at the same time have a not guilty enough conscience to think that they should be able to walk free. And so the interesting part is that Stefan Zappala, who I believe is really the leader of all this, he went and attended a Catholic high school. And then he also went and attended a Catholic law school as well. You know what I mean? And for everybody who's watching this, I think it's very important to be mindful and be wary of people who practice the religion of Catholicism, because for the most part, it's rooted, very heavily in demonic rituals of the Roman Empire. So we're going to go ahead and break some of these things down. We're going to break some of these things down real quick. Let's see. When we look at Daniel, we're going to go to the book of Daniel and go to 7 verse 7. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the beast in Daniel, and then it's also a similar beast that was in the book of Revelations. But when we look at Daniel 7 and 7, he said, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and exceedingly strong. And it had iron teeth, devoured and break in pieces, and stamped the residue with its feet. Stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it diverse from all beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So when we go ahead and talk about that beast that the book of Daniel is talking about, and it's also referred to in the book of Revelations, that beast is the Roman Empire, and the 10 horns were the 10 leaders that kind of came out of Rome. And in the same book of Daniel, as we go on and talk about 7 and 25, I believe. Yes, 7 and 25. Yeah. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand into a time, and a dividing of time. So we're talking about the Roman Empire and how it relates to Catholicism. For the most part, the Roman Empire, is almost the big brother of America. The Colosseums were founded in Rome. We do the same thing in the United States with sports and with things like that. We want to see, people fight till somebody gets knocked out. We want to see somebody get knocked out. We want to go to, massive football arenas, and we want people to, we want to see how hard somebody's going to get hit, and how, football's biggest hits and all kind of stuff like that. We like to see things like that at Coliseums. War was pretty much the claim to fame of America, and it was definitely the claim to fame of Rome. I am Sparta and all kind of things like this. The gayness, the pedophilia, the homosexuality of the Roman Empire translated as well into America. You know what I mean? And likewise, the beast in Daniel, it said it was different than other beasts, and it was exceedingly strong. And it also referred to this beast as attempting to change time and to change laws. Most people, I don't know if they're familiar with it, but the calendar that the United States uses and a lot of the other world uses is called the Gregorian calendar. And it's named after Pope Gregory. So this calendar started in Rome. And like the Bible said, it's going to seek to change times and to change laws. And this is a fourth beast. It's the beast with 10 horns. And these are the leaders of Rome. With the Gregorian calendar, the days are reflected based off of, and again, Gregory was a pope, of Rome, but at the same time, Catholicism has roots in Roman theology, and then it's basically a Roman religion. And so when you look at the calendar that they created, Moon Day being Sun Day, being the day you worship the sun, different things like that. These are all Roman philosophies. Romans, would worship the moons and the stars and Pluto and all, all kind of stuff like that. And so yeah, they changed the days. Likewise, Sabbath in the Bible is the seventh day, but on the Catholic day of worship is Sunday. You know what I mean? They're changing the Sabbath from the seventh day of the week to the first day of the week. The months and the times, how New Year starts is based off of the Gregorian calendar. But clearly, life doesn't begin in life doesn't begin in winter, but the new year does begin in winter. So all these things were changes that were implemented by the Catholic Church, and it has a very far-reaching effect because the Catholic Church was basically the brain, behind the Roman Empire. And as the Roman Empire conquered and spread its theology, so was Catholicism spread and different things like that. And, it says it's going to seek to change laws and different things like that. For the most part, a lot of, like I said, a lot of what we do in America and in just the Western world was heavily inspired by the Roman Empire. And so you should always be weary about, just the Catholicism and things like that. So that was the first story, kids for cash. All right.